You ever notice how fast life can flip upside down? One day you're cruising along, bills paid, roof over your head. The next you're sleeping in your Honda Civic behind a Walmart. That's exactly what happened to me. Medical bills from a busted appendix, followed by missing work, followed by late fees stacking up like dominoes. 3 months later, I was officially what they call housing insecure, which is just a fancy way of saying homeless. But hey, at least I landed a gig at Eddie's all-night diner out on Interstate 35, the place that never closes, never stops hiring, and doesn't ask too many questions about your living situation. Perfect for someone like me. It was around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday when everything went sideways. Dead quiet, the way only a roadside diner can be at that hour. I was behind the counter scrolling through job listings on my cracked phone, working on a bowl of chili that had seen better days. My co-worker Maya was texting frantically in the corner booth. She was maybe 19, 7 months pregnant, trying to keep her head above water while her boyfriend did time upstate in Huntsville for armed robbery. Real American dream stuff. Crap, I gotta bounce early, she called over. My mom's freaking out about watching the baby again. Says I need to come get him right now. No worries, I got this, I told her. Car cook Big Jim was out back chain-smoking Marlboros anyway. When it's dead like this, he basically lives on the loading dock. You're a lifesaver. I'll make it up to you, promise. She grabbed her purse and bolted. I heard her rust bucket Corolla cough to life and disappear into the night. 4 more hours till dawn. With any luck, it had stayed dead quiet. Yeah, right. The door chimed and in walked what looked like the cast of Leave It to Beaver. Mom, Dad, and 2 kids. But something was off about the whole picture. I glanced out at the parking lot. No car, maybe they'd parked around back. I can't really remember their faces, but their clothes. Man, those clothes were something else. Dad wore this pristine blue checkered shirt with pressed khakis, hair slicked back like he'd stepped out of a 1950s Brill Cream ad. Mom had on this red checkered sundress with a full skirt, waist cinched tight as a corset, hair perfectly curled like she'd just walked off a magazine cover. The little girl sported pigtails with bright yellow ribbons, pink top, blue shorts. The boy had that classic cowlick thing going. Blue shirt, red shorts. They looked like they'd time-traveled straight from a Norman Rockwell painting. Problem was, it felt all wrong. Too perfect. Too staged. Big Jim poked his head back inside, took one long look at our new customers, and disappeared into the kitchen without a word. Thanks for the backup, buddy. Evening, folks, I said, dropping menus on their table. What can I get you to drink? All 4 of them folded their hands on top of their menus and turned toward me with identical smiles. Creepy as hell. 4 glasses of milk, please, Dad said in this weird, old-timey voice like he was auditioning for the Andy Griffith Show. Everything looks absolutely wonderful, Mom chirped, though she hadn't even glanced at the menu. When's the last time you saw grown adults order milk at 3 a.m.? Yeah, never. I brought their drinks over. None of them had moved an inch. Same posture, same frozen smiles, watching me like I was some kind of science experiment. Ready to order? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. They all turned to look at my name tag at the exact same time. Thank God most of it was hidden under my hoodie. We're waiting for someone, Mom said in this sing-song voice that made my skin crawl. Then they all turned back to face each other with those identical little grins. The milk sat untouched, condensation pooling on the table. Kids that quiet? That still? Not normal. Hell, nobody waits for anyone at 3 a.m. I started wiping down counters, company policy about not leaving customers alone. But I had no clue what to do with these people. Sure, I can't get you anything else. I tried after a few minutes of dead silence. We told you. We're waiting, one of the kids hissed. That wasn't a kid's voice. That was something else entirely. I dropped my rag. All 4 sets of eyes locked onto me, and nobody was smiling anymore. My heart was hammering so loud I swear they could hear it. That's when I spotted Big Jim through the kitchen window, waving like his life depended on it, motioning for me to get back there fast. I backed away slow, every instinct screaming not to turn my back on whatever was sitting in that booth. Soon as I hit the kitchen doors, Jim yanked me inside. Listen to me, he whispered, gripping my arm tight enough to bruise. Those things out there, they ain't people. I tried to look back through the little window. What do you mean? No time to explain. See that salt? He pointed to this massive bag of rock salt I'd somehow never noticed before. Pour a line across the front entrance. Make sure the doors won't break it when they swing. Wall to wall. Use extra if you're not sure. Jim, I don't understand, and I'm scared out of my mind. Just pour the damn salt. He grabbed his own bag and started making this huge circle, big enough for both of us. Looking around, I could see there was already a salt line across the back wall. I'd known Jim for 3 months. Guy was unflappable. If he was freaking out, that was enough for me. I started pouring, stealing glances through the window. The family hadn't budged. Still sitting there like mannequins. This is seriously messed up, I muttered. Once my line was done and double-checked, Jim pointed to the middle of his salt circle and put a finger to his lips. He crept over to the electrical panel, took a deep breath and killed all the breakers. The whole place went black. Inside lights, outside lights, everything. Then he jumped into the circle with me. A split second later, this ungodly shrieking erupted from the dining room. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The sound cut through me like razors. My skin felt like it was being flayed off. I started to collapse, and Jim caught me by the shirt collar just before I fell outside the circle. Another wave of screaming hit, and I lost it completely. Sobbing, muscles locked up, fighting every instinct to run. Jim's grip kept me anchored. The kitchen doors exploded open, and this writhing black mass oozed its way inside. Even in the dark, I could see it clearly. All those mouths, all those teeth, all those eyes. The stench of roadkill and motor oil filled the air. That was the family I puked. Couldn't help it. The thing slithered right up to the edge of our salt line and spread out along it like oil hitting a seawall. Now I understood the circle. One tiny gap and we'd have been done for. My eyes burned looking at it. Something warm hit my hand, blood from my nose. The screaming got worse and Jim yelled, "Don't look at it!" I squeezed my eyes shut, covered my ears and prayed. I must have passed out because next thing I knew it was morning. My whole body ached like I'd been hit by a truck. Face crusty with dried blood, snot and tears. Jim looked like he'd been through a blender. He was sweeping up all the salt with this special broom marked "Do Not Use" in black Sharpie. The salt had turned this weird blue-gray color and reeked of sulfur and gasoline. Maybe it was the sunlight. Maybe it was surviving the worst night of my life. But when I finally spoke, my voice came out surprisingly calm, even though it sounded like I'd been gargling gravel. "I'm gonna wash my face. Then I'm making coffee. Then you're gonna tell me what the hell that was." He nodded and kept sweeping. I thought about flipping our sign to "closed," but knowing my luck, the manager would show up the second I did. Besides, the place was empty. After he finished cleaning up, we sat across from each other with the best coffee I'd ever tasted. Jim lit up a cigarette and we just stared at each other for a minute. Despite everything, the diner looked perfect. Like nothing had happened. "So," I said, "what was that thing?" He took a long drag like he was deciding whether to tell me the truth. "They call it the family. Never seen them myself before, but Rosa, the waitress who worked here before you, she'd been here 5 years, said they show up sometimes." I waited. First clue was no car. They just materialized out of nowhere and walked in. Second was the clothes. All wrong for this century. Where do they come from? Story goes a family vanished on this highway back in the 70s. When they came back, they were that. And nobody thought to mention this when I got hired. Would you have believed it? Probably not. There's a reason the pay is better than McDonald's. What about the salt? The lights? Look, I don't know all the rules. Rosa didn't either. But before this diner was built, way more people went missing around here. Folks would see signs for food or gas, take the exit and vanish. But now they stop here instead. Right off the highway, right back on. But when that thing gets hungry, it comes here. Bingo. That's why you ran to the back? Had to get ready. And the lights? Can't have other people stopping by while it's feeding. And the salt keeps it out. He went quiet. You saw what happened. Right then a real family walked in. Mom, dad, little kid. Normal people. We dropped the conversation. I took their order. Jim fired up the grill. What else could we do? That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still working at Eddie's. Corporate sent us bonus checks when the incident got reported, which bought me a few nights in a decent motel. Still applying other places, but no bites yet. Jim's moving on. Got hired as a guard at the Huntsville unit. Gonna miss him, considering he saved my life and all. I keep thinking I should quit, but where else am I gonna go? At least now I know what to watch for. And honestly, after sleeping in a car for 2 months, even dealing with supernatural horrors beats being homeless. Still doesn't make the night shift any easier though.